The room was too quiet. The clinking glasses had stopped. Even the air seemed heavy. A maid whispered at the back. They said this before. Complaints no one wanted to hear. Her voice barely traveled, but those close enough stiffened. Forgotten memos, buried letters, ignored reports, all of them crawled back, invisible yet deafening. The walls themselves seemed to remember. The housekeeper stood still, hands folded. A small accident broke the silence. The daughter's heel caught on the rug, her body leaning forward. Before anyone gasped, the housekeeper caught her arm. Steady, gentle. The daughter's breath trembled. She whispered, "You always." But the pause was louder than her words. "No thank you," came from the guests. Only hushed disapproval. A sharp intake of breath. Yet her calm stance told the room. Competence needed no approval. At the far end, polished rivals exchanged glances. Lips pressed into brittle smiles. One muttered low, "She fits nowhere here." Another, tightening her pearls, added, "And yet, she stands like she belongs." Their contempt thinned the air, but it did not move her. A reporter in the corner leaned toward his cameraman, his voice a whisper meant to sting. "She's just a housekeeper. Can he really pick her?" The question spread like fire, caught in the eyes of staff shifting, nervously, in the murmurs of those who had long known the truth but never spoken it aloud. The daughter turned slightly, her gaze fixed on the woman beside her. "Do you even want this?" A pause, a faint smile. "I want what's right." Her words were not a plea. They were a verdict. In that moment, memory surged. Silent flashbacks. The housekeeper bent over laundry, dismissed at the dinner table, humiliated for mistakes she never made. Years of erasure, now flickering across the faces of those present. The daughter's voice lifted. "I am considering her." Gasps rippled, chairs shifted, pearls quivered, hands clutched too tightly at polished wood. The rival's masks slipped. Shoulders sagged, lips pressed into bitterness. No sharp insult could hide the faltering ground beneath her. And in the room, power tilted. Staff, once invisible, straightened. Eyes rose. A gardener's hands unclenched. A maid dared a glance upward. The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath. Every step creaked louder. Every whisper carried meaning. The housekeeper felt it. The hesitation, the recalibration, respect, raw and unpolished, began to take shape in the silence. The daughter's choice became more than personal. It was a rupture. Guests murmured, journalists scribbled, staff watched. Power shifted not through shouts, but through observation. Whispers thickened, became sentences. She was always stronger. They ignored her for years. Now, they cannot. And so, silence grew heavy, stretching until it became a force. Every gaze rested on the daughter, waiting. But room understood. The next breath, the next word, would redraw everything. The room was heavy. No one spoke at first. Papers sat in drawers, folders stacked neatly, as if silence could erase what they carried. Years of voices had been buried there, ignored, dismissed, erased. But the air remembered. A maid whispered from the back, almost to herself. They wrote. Nobody read. The words hung. No one answered. Then the sound came. Quick footsteps, the sharp edge of a heel slipping on the rug. The daughter staggered, gasps half-formed. But before the fall, a steady hand caught her arm. The housekeeper.com, firm, as if she had done it 1,000 times. The daughter's breath shivered. "You always." She stopped. Too much weight. In those words, too much seen, too much unsaid. At the edge of the room, polished women shifted. Their pearls gleamed, but their eyes narrowed. A soft laugh, coated in disdain, broke the silence. "She is careful. For now." Another leaned closer, smile sharp, "But she forgets her place." The housekeeper said nothing. Her stillness became its own answer. Near the corner, a reporter bent toward his cameraman. A whisper, but sharp enough to cut. "She's just a housekeeper. Can he really pick her?" The cameraman didn't reply. The lens focused tighter, capturing not the chandeliers but her face. The daughter leaned closer, voice low. "Do you even want this?" The housekeeper's eyes softened, her lips barely moved. "I want what's right. Simple, quiet. Enough to make the air shift." But memory pushed through. Nights of being dismissed. Mistakes she never made pinned on her back. Orders barked, praise never spoken. Each humiliation sat heavy now, pressing into the silence. And everyone in that room felt it. Then came the crack, the daughter's voice, clear enough for all to hear. "I am considering her." The words struck like glass breaking. Gasps spread, chairs scraped. A pearl necklace rattled against the table as hands shook. Whispers tumbled. "She cannot," did she say? The rival's poise wavered. A smile broke, eyes darted, shoulders slumped. One woman's lips trembled before she bit them tight. They had prepared lines, but no script for this. Around them, something small but real happened. The staff, the maids, the gardeners, the butler, lifted their eyes. Not bold, not loud, but no longer bowed. Respect slipped into the room like light through a crack. The mansion itself seemed to wait. The wood creaked louder. The chandelier swayed. Every breath felt counted. The housekeeper knew it. She felt the weight shift, the hesitation in footsteps, the uncertain loyalty in staff who once ignored her. Authority, she realized, was never in the title. It lived in patience, in dignity, in standing when others wanted you gone. The daughter's announcement was more than words. It was a spark. The guests murmured, some in fear, some in thought. The old rules shook, invisible yet fragile. Whispers spread. She was always stronger. They tried to hide her. Now they cannot. The room began to sound different. Not loud, but alive. What had been hidden found voice. Every whisper carried history back into the air. Silence returned, thick and waiting. The daughter's hand trembled against her chair. She had not yet chosen, but the choice pressed down on her, on all of them. The mansion held its breath. The veranda glowed in late sunlight, but no one admired its beauty. The marble tiles, polished to mirror the sky, felt cold under the weight of what was about to unfold. Servants stood at the edges, hands clasped, eyes flickering. Guests sipped wine too carefully, their smiles frozen. The daughter rose slowly, her chair scraping against stone. Every head turned. Her shadow cut across the tiles like a crack forming through glass. The air thickened. Even the birds outside had fallen quiet. The housekeeper, standing near the doorway in her plain uniform, lowered her eyes. She had spent decades on this veranda, polishing floors she was not meant to walk proudly upon. Now she was part of a stage she had never asked for. No one spoke. They all knew something irreversible was about to begin, though not one of them could name it. The veranda glowed in late sunlight, but no one admired it. The polished marble reflected every nervous glance. Guests shifted in their chairs. Wine glasses held tighter than before. The silence was too heavy to be polite, too sharp to ignore. The daughter rose, the scrape of her chair echoing louder than it should have. A hush fell deeper, as though the air itself leaned in. Her shadow cut across the veranda, a dark line splitting the golden light. The housekeeper, standing near the door, lowered her gaze. She had served on this veranda for years, always invisible, always silent. But now, without moving, she was part of the moment. No one could stop. No one spoke, not yet. But in the stillness, the air said it. Something was about to break. The father cleared his throat, his voice heavy with decades of power. "Tell me," he said slowly, letting the weight of each syllable fall, "who do you feel belongs with us?" It was not really a question. It was a command dressed in velvet. His eyes swept across the crowd, reminding them of the rules he had written without words. He expected the answer he had always received, one that kept bloodlines neat and traditions polished. Every guest leaned closer, knowing what should be said, certain of how this ritual ended. The father's tone assumed silk, pearls, and proper heritage. Not worn hands, not quiet service. The daughter's throat tightened, but she did not look away. The veranda was still. All waited for her to keep the balance intact, but she had already decided. The daughter inhaled once, steady, then she spoke. "She does." Her finger pointed toward the housekeeper. The words were not loud, but they tore through the air like glass shattering. Every chair jolted. A man coughed too, loudly. Women clutched pearls, eyes wide, as if they had misheard, but the stillness proved they had not. "She does," the daughter repeated, her voice firmer, clearer. The housekeeper froze, her eyes widening for the briefest moment. Around her, the staff stiffened, unsure if they should breathe. Gasps broke the silence, disbelief colliding with fear. The veranda, once controlled, now shook with an invisible fracture. No one had expected defiance, spoken so plainly, yet it was undeniable. The choice was out there, raw and irreversible. At the far end, the antagonist pressed her jeweled hand to her mouth, her lips trembled. "Impossible," she whispered, barely audible, but the word slipped out, caught by the silence. A single word that revealed more than a scream could. Her face, once lit with superiority, flickered with fear. "Impossible." She whispered again, though no one had asked her. She was not only rejected, she was exposed. For years, she had stood untouchable, shielded by privilege. Now, in one breath, that armor cracked in front of everyone. Her eyes darted to the father, to the guests, to the servants, searching for someone to rescue her. None moved, none answered. The word hung in the veranda like smoke. Impossible, yet already done. The veranda erupted, not with shouts, but with broken sounds. Thin laughter escaped from a corner, nervous, fragile. Gasps cracked like falling. Glass conversations hushed as quickly as they began. Whispers spread like fire, darting from guest to guest, twisting the story before it was finished. Reporters leaned forward, their pens scratching, cameras raised higher. They could feel history in their hands before it even reached print. Eyes locked on the daughter, then the housekeeper, then back again. The question was no longer a question. The answer had been given, and it had unsettled every foundation of the veranda. The sound of disbelief was louder than applause. The housekeeper stood still. She had spent years bowing her head, blending into corners, folding herself smaller so as not to disturb the air of wealth. But now she is straightened. Her back rose, her shoulders lifted. She did not smile, nor did she cry. She simply stood, steady, calm, unshaken. Those who watched saw no shock in her eyes, only a quiet knowing, as if she had carried this possibility in her chest for years. Her silence was louder than the murmurs around her, louder than gasps, louder than disbelief. She did not need to speak. Dignity filled the space where arrogance had ruled. One rival leaned forward, her necklace catching the light. Her face was tight, jaw clenched, voice cracking. This cannot be happening. She spoke it to no one, yet everyone heard. But the words fell flat. No agreement followed, no defense rose. The guests, once eager to echo her, now kept their mouths shut. Her jewels glittered uselessly, her influence dissolving in silence. The crowd knew it was happening. It had already happened. The sentence floated, brittle swallowed whole by the veranda. She pressed her lips together, trembling. For the first time, she understood what powerlessness tasted like. The father bends to truth approximately 150 words. The father exhaled, long and heavy, his chest sagged with the weight of centuries. It is what it should be, he said quietly. The veranda froze. Again, stunned, not by defiance, but by surrender. His voice, once thunder, now fell like soft rain. The daughter blinked at him, surprised by the gentleness. The housekeeper looked down, her hands trembling. It was not a triumph, not yet. But the words shifted the ground. For the first time, authority bent toward dignity instead of pride. The staff, who once looked away or smirked behind her back, now lowered their heads in quiet respect. Not loudly, not ceremoniously, but with small, deliberate nods. Guests who had mocked her presence avoided her gaze, shifting uncomfortably. Even their silence admitted it. She had earned something no wealth could buy. It was not a celebration, it was survival. Yet in that survival, the first ripple of change moved through the crowd. The veranda had rearranged itself. Without anyone standing up, cameras flashed like lightning, too fast to shield against the daughter's words, the housekeeper's stillness, the antagonist's collapse. All captured, transmitted, shared. Phones buzzed before pearls stopped trembling. Screens lit up across the city, living rooms, offices, crowded buses. The moment escaped the veranda and bled into the world. The story was too sharp to be softened, too raw to stay private. By the time silence returned, the world was already watching. The antagonist clutched her pearls, knuckles white. She tried to smile, but it cracked halfway, hollow and trembling. She did not shout, she did not fight. Her collapse was quieter than expected, more final. Her shoulders sagged, her eyes flickered. The grandeur she had worn like armor dissolved. In front of everyone, no thunder marked her fall, only silence. Around her, faint laughter rose, not cruel, but inevitable. A truth too heavy to hold had crushed her without a sound. The veranda stood witness. History had turned, and for once, it had not asked for permission. The hall felt different, lighter, yet heavy with history. The walls, once echoing with cold commands, now carried softer sounds, footsteps that did not rush to hide, greetings not weighed down by fear. The daughter walked slowly beside the housekeeper. For the first time, her smile did not feel rehearsed. Daughter quietly, almost a whisper, I never felt this safe before. Silence followed. It was not uncomfortable, but sharp, cutting through years of unspoken truths. The housekeeper turned, her expression calm, steady, carrying decades of silence in her eyes. Housekeeper, then it is exactly where you belong. Her words hung in the room, bending years of hierarchy with a single sentence. No bitterness, no gloating, just dignity, worn like armor. From across the hall, the father watched. His lips did not part. His eyes carried the weight of realization. Power, money, reputation, none had built the safety his daughter spoke of. In that moment, he understood. Justice had arrived, not through him, but despite him. The rival, once untouchable, felt the walls closing in. Her calls unanswered, her invitations returned without response. She entered rooms that no longer turned toward her. Applause, once her language, had gone mute. She sat in silence that no wealth could break. Narration flowed like memory. Collapse does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it is just being forgotten. Ignored, invitations began to weigh louder than insults. She checked her phone again and again, searching for names that once fought for her approval. None appeared. Her legacy, built on arrogance, began to dust itself away. What strutted proudly yesterday now faded to faint gossip, replaced by an image that refused to disappear. A housekeeper standing tall beside the daughter who chose dignity. Screens lit up everywhere. Journalists wrote, not about scandal, not about dresses or fortunes, but about endurance. About a woman who carried herself with quiet fire. The story spread, not as entertainment, but as proof. Proof that dignity could outlive arrogance. Children watched. Staff whispered to one another, no longer hushed, but steady, voices growing braver each day. They had witnessed a turning. They had seen that silence was not forever, that respect could be reclaimed, that dignity could take its rightful place. The father still stood in the corner, a man who had spent his life defending image. Now he saw his legacy not in empires or money, but in laughter. The laughter of his daughter, free, unmasked, unafraid. The house grew quiet again, but not with fear. This time it was a silence of recognition. Empires crumble, but courage plants roots too deep to be pulled out. The laughter of equals becomes the true inheritance. The mansion, once built on fear, now breathes differently, not because power was forced to bend, but because dignity refused to break.